Hello, hello, hello. Dolly, stop. Dolly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 2 of the podcast. This is the second test podcast episode, and I'm super excited. I have a very interesting topic to discuss tonight, and I've gotten some really, really good emails from you guys. So if you're not part of my membership program, you really need to join. They have been picking topics over there and emailing me suggestions. I have been giving you guys different polls to vote on the community page, and I make it public to all of my members of the membership program. So if you are not a part of the membership program, I definitely recommend that you join it, simply because if you really enjoy my channel, you're really going to get the biggest bang for your buck if you're a part of that membership program. So today's topic that we're going to be talking about, I put cheating in the title, but really and truly, we're going to talk a little bit more than just cheating. This conversation is more of a broad spectrum. I want to talk about what some of your guys' cheating boundaries are, what are mine, and also talk about the stereotypical relationship cues, like boxes that have to be checked. And if you and your relationship decide to do something outside of that box, you are deemed an unfit relationship. We're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about the traumas that come with cheating and how that then affects the way we think moving forward. We're also going to talk about divorce in this episode. So before we move any further, be sure that you do subscribe to my channel. We come out with weekly content on this page. Typically it's story times, but we also do beauty videos. We talk about documentaries. We talk paranormal over here. Basically, whatever kind of jam or jelly you like on your toast, we pretty much have it for you over here on this channel. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, there is a membership program that you can join on my page. And members are the one who are choosing the titles. I'm running polls every single Wednesday, and they are choosing which topic we want to talk about. And they are able to email me with whatever topic we choose, email me their stories. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about cheating. And to begin this, what I want to talk about first is the stereotypical relationship, right? Which is monogamy. A monogamous relationship is what I'm going to talk about, because that is a stereotypical relationship between two people. You are monogamous, you are with one another, you have made this commitment. And I want to talk about the difference in a couple of different relationships, because I had a couple of people message me with some very interesting views on what they constitute as cheating. All of us are different, and I want you guys to feel free in the comment section to let us know if you agree, if you disagree, what are your views on a relationship, and what is cheating in your eyes. For example, in my personal relationship and opinion, I feel that anything that you would not be confident enough sharing with your partner would constitute as cheating. I feel like when you are making that vow to be you're vowing to be in this monogamous relationship with another human being. I feel like if you are doing anything that you feel would upset your partner, that constitutes as cheating. If you are having a private conversation with someone that you have been either have been or are still sexually attracted to, if you're having a private conversation in the DMs with someone that you have either you've had some type of sexual encounter with or relationship with or feelings for, etc., or that would upset my significant other, and I know that, and if he were to do that, he knows that would upset me. That I feel is a layer of cheating. I also feel, and this is a big one because a lot of people do not feel that kissing is cheating. And I find this interesting, and this just goes to show how important communication really is in a relationship. Because for a lot of people that reached out to me, they do not constitute speaking to an ex or speaking to someone that you've had prior relations with, having a private conversation with them in the DMs or via text. Basically, a conversation that you would probably delete, a conversation that you would not confidently leave in your DMs. They do not feel that that is cheating, and they also do not feel that kissing is cheating. So let's talk about it. How would you react if your spouse kissed another person? I think I would probably say 80%. That was in my mind off the rip before I did research, that 80% of the population probably agrees that kissing another person is cheating. But it's actually quite the contrary. Only 47% in the United States constitute kissing as cheating. Only 12% of the population thinks that speaking to someone that you've either previously been, like you've previously been in a romantic relationship with, and you talk to them in the DMs or you text with them, only 12% of the population believe that that is cheating. Having sex with another person in a monogamous relationship. Obviously, we are not talking about open relationships. We are not talking about polyamory. We're not talking about those other relationships. We are talking strictly a monogamous relationship. You and another person have made a commitment to be in a relationship with one another. You all have had that conversation and agreed, we're going to be in this relationship together. It's going to be you and I. And either you or your significant other sleeps with another person, and by sleeps with I mean has full-blown intercourse. And I do believe that the statistics that I'm bouncing off of is from Harvard. I believe that they're also including oral sex, any type of, you know, they use the word fondling, so I'm assuming like touching, groping, sucking, slurping, fucking, the whole thing. Okay, all of the above. 83% believe that that is cheating. I really am curious of the other, like, what is that, 16% of the population who believes that sleeping in a monogamous relationship. Now, obviously, there are people who have open relationships and who have polyamorous relationships. Obviously, sex does come, having sex with other people are sometimes part of those relationships. But this article is specifically for people who are in monogamous relationships. And this whole questionnaire was filled out by 200 straight, 200 bisexual, 200 gay men, and 200 lesbian women, and 14 transgender people filled out this questionnaire. So it is a broad spectrum of people who are in different kinds of relationships. And I find that crazy that there is at least 16%, that's almost 20% of the population that believes that having sex with another person is not cheating. Now, bouncing off of this opens up the conversation and what I really want to talk about tonight, which is, have you communicated with your partner? Have you had that talk of what you are comfortable with? Because I feel like if you're in a monogamous relationship, eventually, a lot of times, in this case, from the statistics I'm reading, 63% of monogamous relationships do lead to divorce. And then over 80% of marriages lead to divorce. So, monogamous relationship, you have a large percent that leads to marriage. And then an even larger percent of those people, that bucket of people who got married, lead to divorce. And out of those divorces, over 90% of the people who filled out this questionnaire was due to infidelity. And I think, this is my personal opinion, I think that if we had a bigger conversation and really get uncomfy and talk about what our thoughts are and what our opinions are on infidelity. Do you feel that it is okay if, you know, 15 years down the road, your spouse was at work and they really hit it off with this person that they work with? And in the heat of the moment, at, let's say, a work Christmas party, in the heat of the moment, they share a kiss. Very quick, a peck. There's no tongue action going on, and it stops there. Your spouse comes home and says to you, tonight, I was a little drunk at the work Christmas party, and this person that I'm sure they've mentioned to you before, in the spur of the moment, we kissed. It meant nothing. It'll never happen again. I'm sorry. How would you react in that situation? Along with having the communication, I also want to talk about how we react to these things. And then I also want to talk about the trauma that comes after that. So let's talk about a relationship that I was in. And the only thing I can speak from is myself. However, I am going to share another story here in a little bit that is from one of my subscribers. She gave me permission to use her name, but I'm going to keep her anonymous just for her protection. But I am going to share her story here in a little bit. She is in a fully polyamorous relationship. And she has been in this relationship for almost 30 years, and they have been able to make it work. So I'm going to talk about two ends of the spectrum. I can only speak being in monogamous relationships. That is my preference. My sexual preference is also straight. I'm only sexually attracted to men. I have tried females in the past, and it wasn't for me. But that is what I can speak for. If you have anything else that you can share, I know I have a lot of people who are gay and lesbian. Please share your stories in the comment section. Let us know how those relationships have worked for you. But I'm going to share my personal venture with cheating and what it did for me. Now, I grew up in the South. A lot of you guys know this. I live in East Tennessee, a small town called Halls Crossroads. It's a very, very small town. I think we have 2 or 3 traffic lights. They're actually about to put a new one up. Um, in this town, we have we have 2 elementary schools, but we have 1 middle school and 1 high school. Very, very, very small town, and I was very, very sheltered, along with a lot of the girls that I grew up with in my hometown. A lot of us had no clue what was really going on in the world. We had no idea all of the curveballs that would be thrown to us in our lives. And that's another thing, that's a whole other topic that we can talk about another day. But I want to share this story because this was my first taste of not only monogamy, not only my first real relationship. This was my first experience with everything. This was my first experience kissing someone. This was my first experience holding someone's hand. This was my first experience having oral sex, vaginal sex. This was my first real experience with love. And I was a freshman in high school. I had made friends with this girl, and she just so happened to had come from a different school in Knoxville, and she was living with her cousin. She had gotten in trouble. She had gotten in a fight at her old school. They kicked her out, and she came to Halls. Well, her cousin that she was living with, he would be my first love. We're going to call him, we'll call him Marvin. We'll call him Marvin. So I'm introduced to Marvin, and off the rip, it's right around prom season, and he is immediately, you know, flirting with me, and it was like a whirlwind. It happened really fast. He eventually asked me to be his girlfriend, and I agreed, but I didn't want to take the prom experience away from the girl who he had already agreed to go to prom with. However, he begged and pleaded and begged and pleaded. And then one day I got called down to the office, and there were 3 dozen roses in the office with the note asking me to go to prom. So after that day, I agreed to go to prom. Fast forward, we date for well over almost 2 years. I, I was friends with everyone in his family, knew everyone, had all of these life experiences with him. Like I said, it was my first time doing everything was with him. First kiss, first touch, first time having oral sex, real sex, all of the things was with this guy. So I'm sure it's the same regardless of what your sexual orientation is, but the first time that you sexually give yourself to a person, there's this bond that is formed emotionally. And I don't know if it's just girls. I would like to hope that it's both guys too. I've never really spoke to a guy other than Chris. And Chris said that he did have an emotional attachment to his first as well. So I think that it's on both sides of the fence, but you get this real emotional hold. So fast forward a couple of years, and I went to the beach with my family, and we were in a really good place. That's what really blew my mind. But we were in a really good place, and he had just gotten his first apartment, and I asked him to watch our dog, mine and my family's dog, while we were at the beach, and he agreed. And we ended up leaving the beach early, and that beach trip had been horrible. I got stung by a jellyfish. He wasn't really answering the phone for me while we were there, nor was he really staying on the phone with me. I never would have thought that I was going to pull up in his driveway to get my dog and he had another female there. I would have never guessed that in a million years. But that was the case. He had cheated on me. And that devastated me. Not only that same month, my pappy ended up passing away, it was a whole big thing. So from that moment, I had really, really, really bad PTSD slash my therapist has told me relationship trauma from that experience, because we had made all of these plans to get married and live this life, and that happened. And I ended up marrying this guy, the very next guy I got to. Soon as I graduated high school, got married to this guy. Within 3 months, I was divorced. Not long after that, I was on drugs. It was like a spiral where I was just trying to fulfill myself with that same feeling that you get when you're with someone that you genuinely care about and you're really excited to be around. So that was my first experience with cheating. And then fast forward, I get married and he sleeps with my best friend. I walk in on it. Um, so that happened. Those are the two times that I have been cheated on. Both very traumatic for me, caused a lot of relationship trauma to the point now I have to feel very comfortable in my relationship to be in one with you. It takes a lot to get me into a place to where I will actually commit to you. It takes a lot for me to agree to have sex with you or to want to have sex with you. All of these things that I've been through has really, really, really messed me up to the point to where me and Chris were in a situationship for years before we actually got into an actual relationship. I was so messed up from everything that had happened before. Now, the story that I got from an email is from a subscriber of mine, and this is a different type of relationship. This is a polyamorous relationship. So you have to open your mind to the idea that you and your significant other have not only agreed to have sex with other people, but you are even okay with inviting someone into your relationship. So she told me that she has been with her significant other for almost 30 years. So this has been a long-term polyamorous relationship. She said the first 5 years were terrible. They had no communication and they would both go off and have sex willy-nilly. And there was no conversation had of like what she was comfortable with, what he was comfortable with. They ended up inviting a woman into their relationship that almost ended their relationship because she did not agree with this woman being in the relationship. She knew this woman had really bad intentions. Not only that, but this woman who claimed to be poly, she was actually monogamous. And that's what caused the problems, is that she ended up wanting the guy to herself and wanted to kick her out altogether. And that didn't work. So the way that they ended up making it work all these years is after that relationship, they ended up sitting down and having a conversation of what they're okay with, what they're not okay with, and that they both equally have to agree to invite someone into the relationship. And she said that for a long time, she felt like her significant other had cheated on her. And she kept telling herself, well, I can't feel that way because we're in a polyamorous relationship. And this is super important. This is an article that was actually written by Heather Lipton Scott. She is from Yale University and she studies human relationships, all different kinds of relationships. I had no idea that there are over 200 different kinds of relationships, even though you might think you're in a monogamous relationship, depending on the conversation that you've had with your significant other, that could very well change what type of relationship you're in. If you are anything different than it's me and you and that's it, if you all do anything different, you might want to Google, because you might be in a different relationship than you think. But she says that if you are in a polyamorous relationship, anything sexual that is not agreed upon by both parties can still be constituted as cheating, and that a lot of people in polyamorous relationships that have not had open communication and who have not set down boundaries, a lot of times they do end up with emotional traumas because they do not realize that the way they feel is valid, that the fact that their spouse slept with this other person just because they're in a polyamorous or open relationship, they feel like, well, I can't feel this way, but in reality they can. So what happens after you've been cheated on? Well, I think a lot of people handle cheating in a lot of different ways. The first time I was cheated on, I held all of those emotions in. I was embarrassed, so I didn't want anyone to know that I was crushing inside. So I held all of those emotions in. And then, like I said, 4.5 weeks later, basically my dad died. My pappy had raised me my whole life. He died. And so I was going through my very first breakup with someone I loved, and my pappy was taken from me within that span. And oddly enough, the second time that I was cheated on was with someone I was married to, and he cheated on me with my best friend. 2 weeks later, my nanny died. So I constitute cheating with death. And I found this out after talking to my therapist and reading back through. You guys know that I keep journals. I've kept them my whole life. I have 6 boxes full of journals. And I've kept those journals to look back on how I was feeling in that moment. And after talking to my therapist and reading through those notes, somehow I correlated cheating with death. And those emotions kind of started to bleed together, like how you might act during a breakup of someone cheating on you. Instead of acting that way and that level of emotion, I would act the way you would when someone passes away, which is very dangerous, and it has caused PTSD, which I would have never guessed, but now that I've been diagnosed with that and I know that that's my truth, it makes sense. Because every time I was cheated on, I started doing something detrimental. So the first time I started using drugs. The second time is when I started shooting up drugs. So it's this crazy thing that has connected together and is the reason why I want to have this podcast is because what makes someone want to cheat or have an affair? What makes someone want to commit infidelity instead of sitting down and having communication with your significant other and saying, I'm not happy in this relationship, or I need to explore. Like my first relationship, I think his main thing was he needed to know sex outside of just me because we were each other's first experience and only experience. But instead of having those conversations, we just go out and cheat. What makes us do that? Why is it so difficult for humans to communicate? This is a worldwide thing because once I was doing investigation work here on communication and cheating and communicating about that, Yale and Harvard both have done a lot of research on the human mind and why we act the way we do when we either want to cheat or when we've been cheated on. And there's actually a broad spectrum of the way that we behave when we've been cheated on. Some people are very much the vibe of, well, when I get off one, I go right and get up under another. They're very much that. They're very much go to the next relationship one after the other, after the other, after the other, and try to forget that person. Whereas some people are very emotional. They get very, 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 very emotional to the point to where they might not eat or sleep for days. There's a broad spectrum of the way that we act and why we act the way we do. And it's very close to 50-50 of who of us that act sexually emotional after they've been cheated on and those who act just extremely emotional after a breakup. And then there's the middle party who I guess just deal with it on a healthy basis. Do you know what the percentage is of people who handle breakups that ended in cheating emotionally healthy? 9%. 9% of people who were cheated on in a relationship and it ended deal with those emotions in a healthy way. 9%. And then it's like 40 something of people who go out and have all these sexual escapades to try to forget that person. And like, I think it's 42% of the population handle it very emotionally. They will go days without eating, days without sleeping. They just feel like they're a big, huge chunk of their heart is out walking in the world with someone else. And I'm part of that percent for sure. I can admit that. That is definitely me. And I felt at the time that journaling is what was helping me deal with those emotions. However, I didn't know that there were still portions of those emotions that I was dealing with. And that is what therapy helped me realize, like talking that out. And if you can't afford therapy, find yourself someone that you really feel that you can talk to, someone that you can trust to get those emotions out. Because really and truly, I don't think that you can truly enjoy either your current relationship or one that comes in the future if you're still dealing with those emotions and those feelings that come from a relationship that ended in cheating. Because cheating and infidelity is, and this was in the article from Harvard, is one of the lowest forms of a thing a human go through because it makes us feel that we are inadequate, that we are not good enough. Do I not know how to have, we question ourselves on everything. Am I not physically attractive? Do I not know how to give head? Do I not know how to have sex? What is wrong with me that this person has now went out and had sex with another person? I told that person everything. They knew everything about me, the good, the bad, the ugly, but they still went and slept with someone else. Harvard says that those people who actually do commit infidelity, which is where we're about to head into now, they are dealing with either emotional trauma, childhood trauma, any type of trauma, or they were raised in a atmosphere where cheating was a regular thing, something that they witnessed on a regular basis, or, which is the larger percentage, which is like 42%, they enjoy the rush and sensation that is created when you cheat. So let's talk about this scenario because it makes sense. It makes sense. And I have heard this before, but I've not really read into it. The thrill and the ecstasy, the euphoria that comes with committing infidelity. And from what I've researched is there is a chemical in the brain that is released that is very similar to that of someone who is an alcoholic, or even if you're not. If you take a drink and you get drunk and you feel, like you're on cloud nine, it is that type of feeling. Or if you are a addict or recovering addict, it is that feeling of when you use, it's like a euphoria. It's this chemical that's released when you cheat. It is the fear of being caught, in layman's terms, is what has been, that's the phrase that's used a lot. The fear of getting caught is exciting to them to the point to where they, a lot of times, are habitual offenders of cheating. A lot of times they will get addicted to that feeling to the point to where they will do it over and over and over and over again. Now, let's talk about cheating in relationships that seem to be in the perfect place. Say it's a family member, say it's a friend, and they're always super happy. They always look like they've got everything together. And then all of a sudden, either you might see one of them out cheating, or they might come out and say, you know, I had an affair. My spouse had an affair. And that makes you wonder, okay, well, if they were doing so great and everything was so wonderful for them, how could things ever go right for me? Why is that such a dangerous way of thinking? Well, from what I've read, we have this sensation of FOMO, and I think it's even more in the world today than it was 10 years ago because we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have all these social media, Snapchat, all of these things where we see these people live these perfect lives. Because, of course, you're not going to post on social media when you're having a bad day. You're not going to post on your Instagram story or post a TikTok of you and your spouse having a actual real argument. No, you're going to post Instagram photos of you guys at the beach, and you're going to post TikToks of him pretending to be you. You're going to post the highlights. So when it comes out that their significant other was having an affair, you're like, "What? They were so happy." Well, in reality, they're only as happy as what they put on social media. We don't know what happens the other 98% of their day. What they share on social media is a couple of seconds. Even if they're YouTubers and do long form content like myself, A lot of times they're not sharing anything specific to their life. They're not sharing with anything personal that's happening with them and their spouse. So we really don't know if they're okay. We only know that they took a picture on October 12th, 2021 at 6:50 p.m. at a pumpkin patch. We don't know anything else outside of that. But it really is a connection that sometimes we connect with these people on social media. And when something like that happens, we are bamboozled, we are shook, and we think to ourselves, how could we ever be happy when someone, a couple that is so comfortable and happy together as them, does not make it? This is a very unhealthy comparison. And Harvard predicts by the year 2025, more than half of the population is going to be comparing and trying to basically imitate people's lives on social media to their own. They said that as of today, the people who took this questionnaire, which was over 1,500 people, a large percentage of them say that they compare a lot of things that they do for fun, dates, and just general how they manage their relationship, either how people they see do their relationship online or advice given to the following of people who are actual influencers. Guys, that is super, super, super dangerous. The only person that you should take relationship advice from is a marriage/relationship counselor, a therapist, someone who is biased, who is going to unbiased, who is going to give you their opinion based on the knowledge that they learned and have studied. That is the only person that you need to take advice from. This is super scary. And I've always talked about this and knew this was a problem because, yes, of course, everything is going to look perfect online. Obviously, would you post a video on your Facebook of a heated argument between you and your spouse at 3 in the morning? Probably not. I know I sure as hell wouldn't. So, do you think an influencer who gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to post one little story on their feed is going to post a heated argument had by them and their spouse in the middle of the night? No. What you see on the internet and what you see on social media platforms is kind of like a virtual reality. It is a highlight reel. It is not reality. It is not life that we live in. It isn't. It is the fun days. It is the fun times. It is sponsorships and brand deals. It is late nights having a good time with your spouse. It is date nights. It is weddings. It is birthday parties, gender reveals, bridal showers, baby showers. What you see on social media is not after you lost your job and you're going through financial troubles and your spouse is blaming you for being in financial ruin. It is not your spouse kissed a coworker at a party, a work party the other night, and you're having to deal with what to do now. It's not your kid is going through all of these changes as a teenager and is acting out like crazy, and you and your spouse cannot agree on what the correct amount of discipline is to your child. Those things are not posted online. And unfortunately, the internet has led into 88% of all infidelity. 88%. Now, for the men, then this is straight. This is straight. I have statistics for gay and lesbian couples as well, which I'll share. But for straight couples on the men's side, they typically will slide into the DMs, hit someone up, and meet together. For women, it's a little bit different. women are more of getting on dating apps, which is crazy. This one story that I've read and I have written down here is a woman who was married for 14 years to her high school sweetheart. She had never been with anyone else. And a friend of hers had downloaded the app Tinder. Her friend had went through a divorce and downloaded the app Tinder, which led her then into being curious, used her friend's photo, created a Tinder account, and fell in love with her now new husband. And there's a lot of stories like these, a lot of stories of women who are in marriages who might not, the marriages might have some things that need to be communicated about. That's typically what it is. And then instead of having that communication and that talk, they then go and jump on a dating app. But the women are not innocent in the DMs either. Women are doing the exact same thing, leaving comments, liking photos, which then generate eventually a conversation privately in the DMs. But this is what's even funnier, which is what is the most, and this, I do agree that the title of this article is a little toxic. I believe this article is from the Journal, I'm pretty sure. But it says, which dating app, or not which dating app, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong article. Which social media platform is the most dangerous for a committed relationship? And then below it in smaller print, it says, how to lose your committed relationship. And the app that is ranked number one and has been ranked number one for about 6 years standing is Snapchat. And to this day, it still holds the biggest contender for the app where cheating happens the most. And it makes sense. It makes sense. These messages and these videos that you send, you might send a clip with a little text over top of it. It is gone in a matter of seconds. You can save them, but for the better part, your messages are gone. They're gone in lickety split. So, of course, Snapchat would be where infidelity happens the most. But it's so crazy how many marriages ended in 2019. That's the last article I could find where statistics were taken on Snapchat. But how many marriages ended due to Snapchat in 2019? And all of these were court documented by attorneys and mediators. Which, if you don't know what a mediator is, when you get a divorce, typically there is a mediator there that you guys can, speak to, especially if you're not seeing eye to eye on a lot, so that you can kind of get your divorce done. So all these statistics came from mediators and like people who are lawyers, like people who actually know what people were saying caused their divorce. The fact that it's 58,000 people said my marriage ended in 2019 because my spouse cheated with someone from Snapchat. Just take a second and let that sink in. Then there's this whole trend going around on TikTok, actually currently, which fits into this podcast perfectly, which is, what are my toxic relationship traits? And when they use the word toxic, they're meaning like, I need their location, I don't want them liking girls' photos, etc., etc. A lot of them that have done this trend, like Tana Mojo, for example, have said this is all for jokes, like this is a joke, but I'll share. I'll do it. Instead of that, for those people who are actually serious, and these are things that I am needing out of my relationship with a significant other, Instead of saying, oh, these are my toxic traits, instead of that, why don't we just have a communication, open communication with someone that we're wanting to get in a relationship with? Say someone walks up to you, you all been talking for a while, you've been on dates, things are getting pretty serious, and they come to you and they ask to be in a relationship. What you should do off the rip is say, okay, well, this is what I need. This is what I need, and this is what I require out of a committed relationship. Or this is what I require out of a open relationship or poly relationship. No matter what kind of relationship you're in, same-sex relationship, doesn't matter. I need this, and this from you. And I'm willing to give the same to you in return. Instead of going off and cheating and seeing if we can find something bigger and better, the grass is never greener, okay? It's very rare that the grass is greener on the other side. And eventually, karma will make its rounds and you will have to reap what you sow and pay your dues for decisions that you make in the heat of the moment. Instead of committing infidelity on someone who 9 times out of 10 is still being completely faithful to you, instead of doing that, why don't we sit down and talk about why I am trying to run to another person right now? What is making me feel that I need to run to this person or this person and sleep with this person? What is making me feel that way? And I need to have that conversation with my significant other. Let's see what comments we have going on. Suzanne says, anything physically and emotionally are cheating. Cheating starts with a conversation. If you have to hide conversation, it's cheating. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Anything that you keep hidden from your significant other, that is cheating. That is cheating. I'm sorry. If you are in a committed monogamous relationship, in my opinion, if it's something that you're deleting from your phone or you're archiving or you're hiding or, changing names, putting phone numbers in and putting a different name, doing all this shady shit, that is cheating, in my opinion. But again, the whole point of this podcast is to open people's eyes and minds to realize that there are more than just monogamous and poly relationships. There is a broad spectrum of relationships that exist. And the only people who need to know what type of relationship you have is you and your significant other, regardless of your sexual orientation. You two are the only two who need to understand or be okay with the way that you decide to coexist and live in that relationship. The whole point of this podcast is to, instead of wishing that our relationship was like someone on social media, that we flourish in our own and really sit down and have these talks with our spouse of what we feel that, basically what wounds need to be healed up. What things are not making me happy anymore? What things do we need to work on? Communication always needs to be the first step. Before you do anything else, do anything hasty or out of the box, what do we need to work on? Have that talk, communicate with your spouse. And then if it still needs healing, put that work in, see a therapist. You committed to this person. A lot of times we make vows to this person in front of our friends and family. Really open up. And if you're not a relationship person, then don't get in a relationship. It's quite that simple, because cheating does a lot more damage, and having affairs, that creates a lot more damage to the person that you're cheating or having an affair on than you would even realize. Because from that point further, it is quite possible that that person may never trust someone again. I read several stories where this one woman was in her 70s and her husband had an affair. And my grandmommy's story is very similar to this. Her husband of like 30 years had an affair. And she's still single to this day, never had a boyfriend or anything. My grandmommy is the same. So I know this story is real. Cheating and having an affair can really, really, really mess with a person's psyche. For yourself and for the person that you're with, have that conversation. Let them know how you're feeling. If things don't get fixed and you try therapy and things still aren't fixed at that point, sit down and have the conversation. Listen, it's just not working. I just want to be happy. Life is too short. Yada, yada. Have that convo. But don't go out and cheat. And if you are in an open or polyamorous relationship, there is still cheating in both of those relationships. There has to be even more communication in those relationships because you're exceeding the boundaries of what a typical relationship is. Those relationships, involve sleeping with other people and inviting people into your relationship and so on and so forth. So even before that relationship begins, there needs to be a sit down conversation of what are we okay with? What are we not? Are we both okay with the conversation we just had? And if so, move forward. If there's even one thing that you're not okay with 100%, you need to speak up and share that. Because if you do that one thing during the relationship, you cheated. That is still cheating. Even if you agreed to be in an open relationship, even if you agreed to be in a poly relationship, there can still be cheating. There can still be these things happen. And there are so many poly stories and open relationship stories that I found on Reddit and just in articles of people who really, really and truly felt like they weren't cheated on because they agreed to be in an open relationship. And this is another thing I want to touch on before we end this podcast tonight. Only be in a poly relationship or open relationship if it's what you both want. If it's what you both truly, truly, truly want. Because this is something that I found in a lot of poly relationships, to be honest, is that one of the people want a poly or open relationship, and they go to their spouse. And their spouse says okay, but deep down, their spouse just doesn't want to lose them. So they're willing to do whatever they need to do in order to keep their spouse. So they agree to go into that polyamorous or open relationship. And then they end up getting all of this trauma built up over something they agreed to be in. So please don't do it just because you're afraid to lose someone. Don't do it just because your asshole boyfriend in high school is like, only way I'll be with you is if I can be with her too. If you're not down with that and that's not the relationship that you want, don't do it. I love you guys so much. One of my very close subscribers is going through a divorce due to cheating. And I'm not going to say her name, obviously, but I just want to say that my thoughts are with you. You're a bad, bad bitch. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Your person is still out there. I'm here for you anytime you want. I'm always here. And I'm sending all of you all of the love and support. Before we end tonight's podcast, I also want to not only dedicate this podcast to Jalen Collins, but I'm also going to ask you guys a huge, huge, huge favor. After I post this podcast onto my channel, in the description box, there's going to be a link to go sign a petition. I'm going to tell you guys this story. A girl in my hometown in June of 2021 was hit head on by a distracted drunk driver. He was a drunk driver who was also texting, and her best friend, who was 17 at the time, Ashton, was driving the car. They were hit head on, and Ashton died immediately. She leaves behind her boyfriend, her mother, stepdad, and many siblings. Just so happens that her family is married into my first boyfriend's family. I was tagged in her mother's TikToks because she kept saying Knoxville in Tennessee, and my followers kept tagging me in her comment section, and just serendipity that I know her family. Anyways, the man who hit her, he was not only drunk, but he was also texting. Their court date is this month, and they want to make sure that he pays for the crime that he committed. Not only was Jalen killed that night, but Ashton was left in a coma for over a month, and she has permanent lifelong disabilities where she will be on disability for the remainder of her life. And she just now turned 18 years old. She still has a long life to live, and Jalen's life was taken completely away. Completely. She was supposed to start school in the fall of 2021, and that wouldn't happen. Her mother is completely devastated, but she has fought every single day and posts on TikToks daily, letting TikTok in as it, she's used it as a journal, really, and letting her followers know how she's feeling and all of these things. So, all you have to do is go to Google and type in Justice for J. So JUSTICEFORJAE, Justice for J. It will pop up. She was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful brown haired girl from Tennessee. You can also look up Hall's Crossroads, teenager hit by drunk driver or killed by drunk driver. You can Google it that way. But Justice for Jay, it should pop up, and there's a petition to sign. Please, please, please sign it. Their court date is this month. They need 7,500 signatures, and I think that they are very, very, very close. So I am trusting that you guys will do it. Also, after this video is posted on my channel, I will have the petition linked down in the description box. Also, if you would like to donate to the family after you sign the petition, it will give you the option to do so. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and following who have not only signed the petition already, but who have also donated to the family. That means so much to me that you guys are really, you guys are just so awesome, and I really, 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 really appreciate it. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is if you post on Facebook, please use the hashtag Justice for Jay. Spread this awareness. Let people know that there's a petition that needs to be signed. You can also share the petition on your social medias. Please, 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 you guys, spread the word. Let's get justice for these two girls, one who lost her life and one who is permanently disabled. I love you guys so much. Thank you all so much for stopping by and listening to the podcast tonight. Be sure that you do subscribe before you leave and like this live so I know that you enjoy the podcast. Also, do not forget that if you like the podcast, you want to give in your thoughts, and you want it 2 days early when it's released on SoundCloud, be sure you're a part of my membership program. There are a lot of perks and early access that is going to be coming with that, and it is $4. You also get your own emojis and stickers to go next to your name so I know who you are. Also, if you would like to support this channel, you can do so by sending thanks, super chats, etc., or you can send it to me through Cash App at MorganShay33. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. I hope you guys like this podcast. I'm super excited for next week's. Next week is going to be pretty funny, so be sure you're tuned in. Last thing I'm going to say is, before you go and leave YouTube tonight, be sure you go and watch today's story time. It only took me about 2 weeks to edit. Yes, ma'am. Sure did. Anyways, I love you guys so fucking much. Until the very next time. Bye.